Yo, what's going on, guys? Crispy Flakes here. Welcome to Extra Crispy. For today's video, we got a video by Austin Sweat titled The 11 Worst Endings to NBA Careers. So I know this one probably going to hit home a little bit right here just because when I think about just like really good NBA players, like oftentimes, I mean, there can be like a huge fall off of talent and a player that you like grew up watching, just absolutely loved, just gone one day, man. Just either at the end of an NBA bench or just retires. Nobody really talks about it. And yeah, you like hear their name like years later, like, oh yeah, like that guy exists, man. I used to love watching them. So ton of dudes like that. Nobody that really comes to mind, because if they came to mind, then like I said, somebody that I think about, right? But yeah, I'm sure there's a lot of dudes out there like Carlos Delfino. I used to really like Carlos Delfino, man. And one day he was just gone. Okay, so here we go. Let's get going on it, man.
Today we look at the 11 worst endings to NBA careers. No matter who they are,
Carlos Delfino will not be on this list.
Good they are, every NBA career comes to an end. So players
or like what about Michael Redd? No, Rashard Lewis. When Rashard retired? What happened to Rashard, man? I miss Rashard. Like, my dude.
Historic last game.
James Posey?
While others aren't so fortunate, and let's take Larry Bird for example. He to this day is still known as an NBA legend and a top 10 player of all time. He won 3 NBA titles, 3 MVPs, and 3 3-point contests. He had a legendary career built off of competing with Magic Johnson and bringing the NBA and its ratings to
he really didn't play like super long, to be honest, but his peak was amazing.
It was clear Larry Bird was gonna be that guy and was gonna be something special. I mean, in his second season, he won league MVP and led his team to a championship. Then just slowly got better and better every season.
While rocking that mullet too.
In 1985, only his 6th year in the league, he was helping his mom shovel crushed rocks to make a driveway and injured his back, giving him back problems for the rest of his career. And that same injury was the one that eventually
actually sucks.
Now, no one would have expected Bird's career to end like that in what is definitely one of the worst endings of all time. I always thought the story was that he hurt his back taking out the trash for his mom, but shoveling rocks is just as
didn't like I think it was Jamal Crawford. I could be wrong about that. I think Jamal Crawford got injured because he was like, there was like a pizza like in like his like in the passenger seat, and it was falling, and he reached over to get it, and he ended up breaking his arm. I think that was Jamal Crawford. I could be wrong about that.
Bad. Now, Larry Bird was still going to
also didn't end his career,
after
obviously,
he suffered that back injury. But after a couple of years, he started to miss a ton of games because of it. And what hurt the most was that when he was actually healthy, he could still go, but the back pain and issues just kept coming back and back until he couldn't play any longer. Another good example is Kobe
really slows
Bryant.
You down too.
Just like Bird, Kobe also had a legendary career, is widely considered to be a top 10 player of all time, and his late career was ruined by injuries. Now we all know how great he was and everything he accomplished. But
yeah, but that ending though, I mean, 60-point game,
kind of went downhill.
One of the best moments of NBA history.
Top of his game and maybe as good as he ever was, but then it happened and everything afterwards was just bad. Starting with later in the summer, even given all the circumstances, the Lakers gave him a 2-year $50 million deal, making him the highest paid player in the NBA, which was a controversial move across the league, especially because he only played 6 games the following season. Then in his second year post-injury, it was made all about his return, even though LA had some young up-and-coming players on the roster. And let's be honest, it wasn't pretty. He averaged his lowest number since his 4th season in the league, pretty much across the board, and only played 35 games, so the Lakers finished with one of the worst.
Yeah, that'd be any other shooting guard's best numbers of all time.
NBA season, and announced it was going to be his farewell tour. So this was going to be another entire season all about him, pretty much ignoring the rest of the roster and anything else the Lakers had going. And it was just that everyone and everything on the team was put aside in 2016, so Kobe could have his farewell tour. And he played even worse in that last season. The young guys rarely got any big moments. LA finished with a terrible 17-65 record, and even though everyone appreciated him in his last season, and he had one of the best last games ever, nobody can deny that it wasn't a great ending to the superstar career of Kobe Bryant. Not all of the worst.
Yeah, and it kind of stalled the Lakers' rebuild.
Take Latrell Sprewell, for example, a player that had a ton of potential throughout his career and showed it. He was a 4-time All-Star, had a few great years, but is widely remembered for only 2 things: his time on the Timberwolves and how his career actually ended. To give insight on the type of guy Latrell was, in his first couple of years, he got into 2 fights with teammates and punched out his head coach for telling him to throw harder passes. So that got him suspended for an entire year. Then fast forward to the end of his career when he eventually ends up on the Kevin Garnett-led Timberwolves. The team was making serious noise and becoming real contenders, and Latrell became a big part of that.
Harder passes.
Minnesota offered him a 3-year, $20 million
hard fist to your face, coach.
He turned it down because he said it wasn't enough money to feed his family, saying he'd rather retire than play for any less than that. He then proceeded to get no other offers from any
less than what? How much money was it?
To his word, any less down because he said it wasn't. When Minnesota offered him a 3-year, $21 million deal to return, he turned it down because he said it wasn't enough money to feed his family.
What y'all eating, man?
Retire than play for any less than that. He then
what y'all eating, man?
No other offers from any other NBA teams, kept to his word, and just flat out retired. So he chose to make no money.
Damn, caviar for breakfast? Caviar Pop-Tarts?
And what makes it even worse was that most of his properties and houses got foreclosed.
Damn, Kobe beef SpaghettiOs?
And the entire thing just made him look spoiled, entitled, and most of all, pretty dumb too. For someone that was the greatest of all time, Michael Jordan's career didn't really end how you'd expect it to, with 3 retirements and playing for the Washington Wizards. Now, had his career ended after his game winner over the Jazz, it would have given him the best ending of all time to an NBA.
Yeah, my man,
it didn't go like that.
Mentored Rip Hamilton, though.
That one was understandable.
He mentored Rip.
It was okay, he came back to the league and dominated. But his second, looking back, it was just unfortunate. The only reason he really retired when he did was because Jerry Krause was choosing to break up his team because he wanted to start rebuilding. Directly after a championship, he wanted to start a rebuild.
Let's go to a rebuild while you have Michael freaking Jordan.
MJ still hates him to this day. It did let him walk away on top though, but of course with Jordan not getting to retire on his own terms, he had to come back. He was managing the Washington Wizards and he felt that he could take them to the next level if he stepped back onto the court. But he didn't, and while he still played pretty good, he was the shell of himself, who we just saw 4 years earlier. So he played that way for 2 more seasons before finally retiring again, which was anything but.
You know how scary it would be to play with Michael Jordan on the Wizards? Like, imagine just like one day you just forget to pay, you just don't pass him the ball, or just like you miss a bad shot or something like that. His ass just trades you the next day. Like,
for how his career should have ended. Another
I'm over your shit, Kwame. Get off my team.
Necessarily was planned was Shaq, and his career was a weird one if you think about it. During his time on the Magic and Lakers, he played like a Hall of Famer, and
this man went to about 17 teams to end his career.
Ever seen. But then after that, things got kind of weird because he left the Lakers and just went on to play second option to a bunch of guys, and would often struggle with weight issues and staying in shape like he should have, which made a lot of his later years tough. And it just wasn't something
Cavs, obviously, we saw.
The big man. He played good in Miami, had a good year in Phoenix with Steve Nash, but after aging past his prime on the Cavs with LeBron and on the Celtics with their big 3, it wasn't pretty anymore. It was just weird to watch him go from team to team and not be the go-to guy, something he had always been throughout his career. And it wasn't any major injuries or anything like that. He just progressively got older and his game slowed down. Then during a game while on the Celtics, it's one of the only times you'll ever see a player just jogging down the court and fall down and get injured. And that's when Shaq said he knew his career was over. So on that end. Same with Jay Williams in his career. You probably know Jay as an analyst on ESPN, but years ago he was the 2nd overall.
It's actually a really sad story.
He dominated in college, so the Bulls took him 2nd overall in 2002. He was thought to be a great prospect coming into the league and gave the Bulls hope for a rebuild after MJ left. Well, after an inconsistent rookie season, Jay Williams got into a motorcycle accident and almost lost use of his leg, ultimately ending his NBA career after only 1 season. It was against his NBA contract to even ride a motorcycle in the first place for that exact reason, so he knew what the consequences were before he did it. So one of the worst endings to an NBA career is definitely one where it ended before it even really got started. For something
same with Greg Oden, the knee injuries.
Too. Of course, we all know Magic Johnson's career didn't pan out the way anyone expected it to. In his very short 12-year career, he did more than most NBA Hall of Famers did in 20 years playing the game. But that's what makes how his career ended so tragic. Even though he played half as long as most NBA players, in that short amount of time, he made his case as a unanimous top 5 player, which just leaves you to wonder what could have been if he would have stayed healthy. It makes you wonder how much more he could have accomplished. I mean, he retired at
already the greatest point guard of all time.
We were just a couple of years away from getting him to see against.
I don't think Curry's far behind though.
He would have found out how well he could have played without Kareem and where he could have really ended up in the GOAT discussion. But instead, before the 1992 NBA season, he got a physical and found out on the spot that he was sick and announced his retirement from the NBA out of nowhere. Now, Elgin Baylor is one you might not have expected, but his career really did have a rough ending. And it proves that it doesn't always pay off to be the nice guy, because throughout his career, Elgin helped the Lakers to 8 NBA Finals, but lost every single time. Well, in 1971, 2 games into the season, he ruptured his Achilles, rehabbed the entire year, came back the next season, and after playing his first 9 games, he said, you know what, I can't play as good as I used to.
Can you imagine how much a superstar would get roasted in today's day and age if they put up numbers like Elgin, but went 0-8 in the NBA Finals? Can you imagine the roasting that player would go through? Like, oh my goodness, man.
I'm going to retire to free up some younger guys. Well, the very next game after he retired, the Lakers started their historic 33-game win streak, and then the team would go on to win the title that year. So either Baylor was just extremely unlucky, or maybe he was the problem on the team. Tracy McGrady found himself in a similar scenario. After years of being one of the greatest players
he was in Detroit during the retirement era.
He wasn't as fortunate unfortunate with his
retirement era, I should say,
being on a terrible team or picking up nagging injuries once he was finally on a contender. So he never had any real playoff runs with him having
won a ring in San Antonio
round, which is why some people tend to underrate him. Well, he made it through his whole career being pretty unfortunate until his later years when he was bouncing around the league, and in 2013 he finally ended up on the Spurs just in time for the postseason, which gave him his first chance to play in a game outside the first round. And even though he only played 5 minutes a game, he found himself seconds away from becoming an NBA champion until Ray Allen hits that shot.
Oh damn, it was that season. It was that season. All right.
The season, then the Spurs go on and they win the championship the next year. So if Ray Allen hadn't hit that shot, or if he had just held on for one more season, he could have got the championship he so desperately
wanted. Don't want it like that.
It wouldn't have felt as good, but it might have felt a little better than retiring ringless. Once Greg Oden's career finally ended, that had to have hurt too. He went from being a guy that really did deserve to be at least a top 2 pick in the NBA draft to his dreams being crushed after only 2
You could probably even also say Brandon Roy.
seasons. The first overall pick only played 100 games in his career, all because of 2 bad knees. We've seen draft busts go down with injuries in the past, but never anyone who had luck or knees quite as bad as Greg Oden did. Then finally there's Vince Carter. We all know and love Vince Carter, and although he was
alright till the very end,
it was a historic and Hall of Fame worthy career that he was a part of. His time on the Raptors and the Nets and helping out numerous other NBA teams over his 20 years in the league were something every fan base appreciated, with him also creating a countless amount of iconic moments.
I know why.
Well,
because his last game was like before the NBA shut down. That's right.
Didn't have quite the farewell tour that Kobe Bryant did, because halfway through his, the entire NBA
That's right. I forgot about that.
And he never knew that the last game he actually played in was gonna be his last. It's a real emotional night to play in your last ever game, but because of circumstances no one
should have signed a one-day contract.
Never really got that. Now, if you did enjoy the video, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe.
All right, that's all we got. Yeah, the only one I probably really had was Allen Iverson, because I feel like once he went to Detroit, he did make an all-star team there and everything like that. But then after that, I believe he was on the Memphis Grizzlies for a bit. Didn't do much over there. I think he went back to Philly and just kind of fell off at that point. But yeah, very good video. That's all we got. Thank you all so much for watching, and peace out, my friends.